ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ कृष्ण समस्तजनकल्याणं निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्रीचिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मनश्शरीरेषु च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोति प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिकाञ्जलिनतोऽस्मि। हरि ओम. We are into the second section of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. And just to recapitulate what we saw last time was the background of the reason why Yoga Shastra has been given. Experienceable world and that Atma Tattvam which neither experiences, which is Shuddha Buddha Nitya, the connecting link between the two is mind and Tatkarma. And because this is a connecting link, the world of ours gets divided into two. The world of that is manifested, which is seen by the mind, which is Bahya Vishwa, and the another Vishwa, which is Antar Vishwa, which has nothing to do with whatever is outside. When the Indriyas are no more working, the windows of the body are no more open, then the thing with that we interact with is our Antar Vishwa. Antar Vishwa is far bigger, is a causative factor, is far microscopic, infinitesimally small, and that is the reason why the focus of Yoga Shastra, of Ashtanga Yoga, is on mind, not on the external world. If at all it discusses the external world, it discusses the external world essentially in relation with the Madhya Antahkara. This is what we saw last time. Another reason that we have left last time, in which we announced that we will discuss in the last portion before we enter into the text of Yoga Sutra, is how are we so sure that working in the mind we will be able to completely solve the riddle of this world and get permanently rid of the sukham and the dukkham or the vikaras, and then we will become avikari, nishkriya, shuddha chaitanya. What is the guarantee and why it is so much, why there is so much emphasis on the internal world or the mind? And the reason lies into the siddhanta given by the Sankhya Tattvajnana about the Srishti Pradhanata, how Srishti has emerged. We all know that the entire Srishti is nothing but Trigunas. Guna Gunishu Vartante iti matva na sajjate. In Karma Yoga, Bhagavan says that one who is Tattvavetta Mahabhava, the one who has realized the Tattvam, he realizes this whole world as nothing else but the cheshta, the interaction between one guna with another guna. Even now, when we are listening to each other and talking, we are doing nothing. Essentially, some gunas from me are communicating with some gunas of you. So the whole world is nothing else but the interplay of gunas. If it is the interplay of gunas, then it goes without saying that all that is created, including the mind, including the antakarana, is also having the same gunas. So if we look at the creation of Sthula and Sukshma Srishti as per Sankhya Tattvajnana, the entire Prakriti creates the whole world, manifested world, with the help of Tamo Guna. In that Tamo Guna, there is Sattvangsha also and Rajangsha also. So predominantly it is tamasic in nature, but it has Sattva Guna and Rajoguna. From this Tamo Guna Prakriti, first what is called as Pancha Mahabhuta Tattva are formed. The creation starts with what is called as Pancha Mahabhuta Tanmatra. What is Pancha Mahabhuta Tanmatra? In the subtle Pancha Mahabhuta is called Tanmatra. Subtle means it is still in microscopic form but very potent. When it manifests, we can see all the Pancha Mahabhutas, the Prithvi, Aapa, Jala, Teja, Vayu, whatever we see, Akasha. All these are manifested gross, which we can see, experience with the help of our Indriyas. They are called as macroscopic Mahabhutas, Pancha Mahabhutas. But Pancha Mahabhuta Tanmatra is the microscopic or a subtler aspect of the same Pancha Mahabhuta, but in a potent form. So this potent form of Tanmatra is the source of manifested world as well as of our mind. What it means is, our mind and the manifested world both have the same basis. The constituent with which the antakarana mind is made and the constituent with which this world is made, they are one and the same. In one case, it is fully and grossly manifested. In another case, it is in a very subtle form. And in one case, there is a predominance of tamoguna. In case of antakarna, there is predominance of sattva-ansha. So gunas differ, but the basis from which the mind is formed and the manifested world is formed is one and the same. Then, the most important conclusion because of this Sankhya Tattvajnana is, if I am able to control the gunas at the antakarana level itself, needless to say, the entire manifested world will be known as well as it will be controlled, or it will be under the niyantrana. And that is why a king tries to conquer the territory so that he wants to become Chakravarti Raja. But the yogi wants to conquer a mind because he knows by conquering the mind, the world itself is subservient to him. So such person is called Yogi Raja. Raja and Yogi Raja, the difference is, one who knows the source of everything, he controls the source and becomes Adhipati. That is Yoga. That is why Ashtanga Yoga is a methodical approach, systematic approach, which is not theoretical but practical, which anybody can follow irrespective of his religion or anything, as long as he has a capacity to execute the instructions that have been given, which the instructions are called Ashtanga Yoga. This is the backdrop of the yoga that we need to understand, and why there is so much of emphasis on the aspect of mind. Why mind is so important. Now we all know that the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, this Patanjali Maharaj is sometimes considered to be separate than the Patanjali of Vyakarana, while many people say no, they are one and the same. But there are different schools of thought. We need not get into that. This Patanjali Rishi is also considered to be avatar of Sheshanaga. And also there is a theory that since he fell into the hands of a Brahmana who had an Anjali. Anjali is this, Anjali, and propitiating God, that time he fell into the Anjali. That is why it's called Patanjali. Anjalit Patanti iti Patanjali. This is also one of the etymology of the word Patanjali. So we do not know exactly who this Patanjali was. Some say he was from Afghanistan, some say he was from Kashmir, so there are different versions, but those are historical aspects. What he has written is called Patanjali Sutra. Now, moment we say Sutra, we know that whenever there is a garland, it has a thread. That thread is called Sutra, and the money, the beads are on the top of it. So if you see a necklace, it is seen only the beads are seen, the sutra is not seen. So beads, what do? They adorn, they beautify the sutra or the thread. So this is a beautification. But the Patanjali Yoga Sutra is a sutra. Sutra means only thread. So there is no adornment, no beautification. So none of the sutras will have any flowery language. No. It is pure, crisp, crystal clear, absolute pure knowledge of the methodology of yoga. So that is what one sutra is. We last time saw what is sutra. Sutra is Sankshipta, Asandigdha, Akshobhya, all that we saw last time, that it is Vishwato Mukha. So this being the sutra, the puritanical way, the purest way of presenting any philosophy to the Shishya, where even the small diversion can create whole lot of issues to the interpretation. That is why it is crisp. The words are chosen of the chosen, the tenses, the chanda, the connection, the sandhi, everything is so categorically thought that it looks like as if it is God made, and it is God made because Patanjali Yoga Rishi himself being the Jivan Mukta, all the sutras have been inspired from the divine knowledge. So since it has a Divya Drushti with which it is written, that is why the sutras are perfect. In fact, whenever the example of how the sutra should be is given, Patanjali Yoga Sutra comes as an example. So this is as far as the Patanjali Yoga Sutra is concerned. The total Yoga Sutras are 195 in number. But if you are reading in different books, we may find that some of them say it is 196. So it is either 195 or 196. There is one sutra in the Vibhuti Pada, third Pada, which some people do not consider from Patanjali, so they don't consider it, some consider it. We will see when we come to that. It is 22nd sutra in Vibhuti Pada. We will come to that. The entire Patanjali Yoga Sutra is divided into 4 parts, and the parts are called as Pada. So there are 4 padas or padas, not pada, pada. Pada is foot or the part. There are 4 parts, and the first part is called Samadhi Pada. Second part is called Sadhana Pada. Third is called Vibhuti Pada. And the fourth is called Kaivalya Pada. Now that we are students of Patanjali's Yoga Shastra, this will be automatically by hearted by us because we'll be going into the details of each sutra of each pada. So the word, these words of different padas will be repeated n number of times. So 195 or 196 sutras divided into 4 parts or padas called Samadhi Pada. Samadhi Pada, as the word itself indicates, Samadhi Pada is a pada which describes spiritual absorption. Spiritual absorption means Samadhi. And when we say Samadhi, that means we are away from Samadhi. So what does it talk about? It talks about a person like us who is completely drawn into this world, material world. When he decides to move away from there and ultimately reaches a stage called spiritual absorption or his own sthiti, that entire progress, how it happens, what is there, why one should go from here to there, why is he into the place where he is, where he shouldn't have been. So all these are discussed in Samadhi Pada. It has about 51 sutras. After we understand that the highest goal of life is Samadhi, or to know the Swasthiti, or in other words, in Advaitic words, to know the Atman, then comes the question, how? So, how, what is Samadhi Pada? How is Sadhana Pada? As the word itself indicates, sadhana, it means this is nothing else but the practical approach or the practical method to be followed for getting the samadhi. So sadhana pada is 55 sutras. After this is done, then a person who has practiced the sadhana and reached the samadhi, he becomes the treasure of certain accomplishments. These accomplishments are called in Sanskrit as siddhi. So such a person becomes a new individual, as if Visheshena Bhutva. So such a person is called Vibhuti. We are Bhutas. Vibhuti, Vishesh. So he becomes a special, accomplished person. And then what happens to this person? What are the siddhis that he gets? What are the accomplishments that he gets? Is called Vibhuti Pad. And this is where the sutras are either 55 or 56. We saw that one is more or one is less. There is a controversy. We will see that. So Vibhuti Pad. And then the last is such a person, when he realizes his own nature, then what is the phala prapti? The phala prapti is emancipation or mumukshatva or mokshatva. So when he gets mokshatva, the same word which is used as moksha in Advaita, nirvana in Buddha, is this thing called kaivalya in yoga. So our mind should be very clear. Kaivalya, moksha, nirvana, all are one. It is the final frontier where a formed individual, that is human being, can reach. So Kaivalya. And the word Kaivalya has come from Keval. Keval means only, because that is the only thing that remains. Everything else is vikari. One day or the other it is going to be destroyed. So only one, Ekameva Dvitiya, only that is occupying everything, Vibhurvyapya, that being the Kevala thing. The person who attains this knowledge is called, that knowledge is called Kaivalya, and sometimes the yogi is called as Kevali. Kevali. In Jaina Tattvajnana also, this word Kevali comes. Most of the Tirthankaras are called Kevali. Kevali means the one who possesses Kaivalya Jnana. So much about the composition, how the Grantha is composed, how the Patanjali Yoga Sutras are arranged or organized. There are many people. Patanjali himself is not the originator of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Very humbly he states that I am a compiler of these sutras. Compiler means these are not my sutras. No one knows who made these sutras because they are very old. So much old that more than 4 Upanishads already, Kathopanishad, Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Maitrayani Upanishad, all these mention about the yoga. So since these yogas are mentioned almost in every single thing, we all know that it is a very old treatise. Triya Unnat Sthapyam Samam Shariram. This is a mantra that comes in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Triya Unnat means the chest, the head, and the body should be in straight line. This is described in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. What it means is yoga as such is a very old knowledge which is already a part of Veda. However, after taking out those selected mantras, these sutras were compiled by somebody, we don't know his name. Some of the people ascribe that name as Hiranyagarbha Rishi. There was some Hiranyagarbha Rishi who first wrote these Yoga Sutras. Patanjali Maharaj again recompiled it, reorganized it in a proper manner and authenticated that. That is why it is called Patanjali Yoga Sutra, because it became famous after his name. But he himself says, I am just a Sutrakarta. I am not the original. I am just a compiler of the sutras. After the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras were written, we do not have Patanjali's Yoga Sutras also in its original form with us. They were subsequently commented by many people, of which there was one Rishi called Vyasa Rishi. This Vyasa Rishi has nothing to do with our old Vyasa of Mahabharata, but Vyasa Kurta, Vyasa Bhashyam, is one Grantha which was first written as a Bhashya commentary on Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Then in 10th century, one of the Jivan Mukta giant intellect called Vachaspati Mishra, he wrote a Bhashya called Tattva Vaisharadi, which is again a Bhashya commentary on Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Then there was a Raja Bhoj who wrote Bhojavrutti. Then there was Vijnana Vikshu who wrote Yoga Vartika. And then Vivekananda, he was the one who again, this Patanjali Yoga Sutra, which were lying a little bit in darkness, were brought to the light and made famous under the name of Raja Yoga by Vivekananda Maharaj. Then in the recent times, we have a lot of books. Some of them you might also be referring. We talked about it. Ranganath Jha, the professor at Allahabad University, who was with Gurudev Ranade. He had written a beautiful treatise on Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Then Swami Satchidananda, which is commonly followed by many people. There is also Swami Prabhavananda. In the discussion that there are more than 50 English translations of authoritative type that are being followed. In our discussion, what we are going to do is, we are basically going to follow, as I told earlier, Swami Vivekananda, then Kaivalya Dham interpretation of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Swami Prabhavananda, and we will also try to follow one English translation of Taimni, which is also considered to be a good translation. The reason why we are trying to follow 3-4 is there is no need to follow 3-4, but we are trying to see, while interpreting the sutras, sometimes minor variations are there. As a serious student of the Prasthanatrayi or the Upanishads, now our mind and intellect is developed well enough to probe into the subtleties of certain interpretation, because it is going to help us in sadhana. Mind well, none of our discussions will be focused on theoretical propositions or intellectual discussions. No role to play in sadhana. Our every effort of understanding these sutras is for direct help to us. And for that matter, we are extremely lucky, because Patanjali Yoga Sutra is practice, practice, and practice, nothing else. So it is not a dry philosophy. Philosophy has a role to play, but whole emphasis of ours shall be focused essentially on understanding the subtleties of the sutras. Because they are sutras, they are not so easy to understand, and because it has bearing on the practical aspect, we need to be little careful while reading Patanjali Yoga Sutras from authoritative sources, and more so from the source of that person who himself is a realized yogi, like Swami Vivekananda. Because when he has spoken, he hasn't spoken from the theoretical point, he has spoken as the experience of yoga. In fact, Vivekananda Maharaj gave his lectures on Raja Yoga in New York. But subsequently, he has also spoken about Raja Yoga in England, and while giving demonstration both at New York and England, many a times he went into deep trance, because he was not only narrating the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, he was explaining the experience that he was getting, and he went into the experience while even narrating many a times. Londoner Swami Vivekananda is a book written by Swami Vivekananda's brother Mahendranath. If one reads it, you will come to know. Even Bhagini Nivedita has also written about Swamiji in London. If we read Swami Vivekananda's stay in London during the Raja Yoga lectures, we will realize that how accomplished and yogi Swami Vivekananda was. So our emphasis is to get only those authentic words into discussion, so that whatever little buddhi we have, we will try to understand what these great sages are trying to say. With this much background, I think we are prepared to do the pravesham into the Patanjali Yoga Sutra Grantha. With the help of Gurudeva, with the help of Patanjali Rishiji, and with the help of all the realized sages, we can pray them that let all of us, including the one who is talking, should gain sufficient knowledge of this scripture. Because for us, a scripture is nothing else or nothing less than the Vedas. And that is why the first pada, which will be starting today, of Patanjali Yoga Sutra is called Samadhi Pada. Pada, as I told you, is foot, the part. Samadhi Pada is a pada that is related to Samadhi. What is Samadhi? We are going to anyway see, because that is going to be the part of the sutras. The first sutra in Samadhi Pada is called Atha Yoganushasanam. Atha Yoganushasanam. Luckily, the sutras are very short and terse, T-E-R-S-E, packed with meaning but very short. So down the line as we study, maybe we can by heart it. So Atha Yoganushasanam. What is the meaning of Atha Yoganushasanam? The word is Atha. Atha means now. You see, atha se iti tak, from now till the end. So iti is end, atha is beginning or now. Atha literal translation is now. And a lot of discussions have started right from the first word. What does atha means? Because we see this atha word in many bhashas, many scriptures. For example, Purva Mimamsa, written by Jaimini Rishi. It starts with atha Veda Jidnyasa, atha Karma Jidnyasa. Brahma Sutra starts with atha Jnana Brahma Jidnyasa or Jnana Jidnyasa. So, atha word indicates now there is a discussion. Now let us start with. So now means one thing. Now means there's something was there previously. So something has been completed and something has been started. That is why the word now has come. This is one theory. What it means is, some of them they say, Jaimini Rishi says, Athato Dharma Jidnyasa. Brahma Sutra says, Athato Brahma Jidnyasa. So Athato means atha, now. So many people say the yoga is the next stage of Dharma Sutra. So that is why now you have studied Dharma Sutra. Now we will start with Yoga Sutra. So that is why the word now has come. This is just a theory by some people. Some of them say that most of the scriptures start with Mangalacharan. There is a dictum that every grantha that is made by saints for the dedication to the Lord and to the people in general starts with the Mangalacharan of the deity. Either you do Ganesh Vandana, Ganesha Stuti, Saraswati Stuti, Shiva Stuti, some deity Stuti is done, which is called Mangalacharana, and then you start your grantha. You take any grantha, it will always have a Mangalacharana. But it is almost sacrilege not to have a Mangalacharan in a particular grantha, but Patanjali Maharaj has taken that risk. So many of them, they say, just to avoid that sacrilege, word atha has been put, which is as good as Mangalacharan. This is the second part of it. Third part of it, which is also a good interpretation, is atha means now. And when we say now, what it means is, you cannot be attempting Patanjali Yoga Sutra right away. It is not a book, it is not a scripture that can be taken as by a novice. It is not an introductory text. It is an advanced text. That is why those who have done a little bit of Hatha Yoga, who have understood the knowledge of yoga from different other sources as well as from some teaching, and has prepared his mind to absorb the higher truths, only that person can now attempt for this book. That is why atha. So these are different ways how the word atha has been interpreted. Atha yoga anushasanam, yoga anushasanam. So the word anushasanam is what we need to study. This Anushasan word has been simply translated in a very different way by Vivekananda. He says Anushasan is ekagrata, concentration. So now we start with concentration. That is how Atha Yoga Anushasanam has been translated by Vivekananda Maharaj. While all other people like Prabhavananda and others, everybody, they said, now we start the instructions or the exposition. So Anushasana, Anu means to follow, one after the other. So we know that there is a name called Anuja. That means born afterwards. So Anuja has an Agraja, somebody who is already born. The Bada Bhaiya, the elder brother is there, so younger brother is called Anuja. He followed. He was born after following the one which is already born earlier. So Anu means to follow. Anu Shasana. Shasana, the word has come from Shastum. Shastum is discipline. You say no? Shastra. Shastra also word has come from Shastum. Something which is well organized, which is beautifully and compactly organized, disciplined, is called Shastum. And that is why Shastra, we have a Shastra. It is so precise that it does its job because it is perfectly organized. So perfect organization, perfect disciplined arrangement is called Shasana. And Anushasana is, now we follow the shasana. Now, what do you mean by anushasana in that case? What it means is to follow well disciplined, well organized something is called yoga. Now follows the yoga, which is nothing but perfect embodiment of certain methods and rules, which will be explained. So, systematic explanation of yoga is perhaps the meaning of Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Another thing, hint here is Patanjali Maharaj indirectly has hinted that when he is saying Atha Yoga Anushasanam means Atha Yoga Anushasanam. This is how the first mantra is interpreted. And this leads us directly into the entry for there are no pleasantries around. Directly the Vishaya comes. The Vishaya Pravesh is done, and the most famous aphorism, Sutra of Patanjali, is the second sutra of the first pada, Samadhi pada, which is called Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The first sutra said, now the exposition of well-disciplined thing called yoga is starting. But the second one is defining yoga. Vyakhya. Definition of yoga is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So there are 4 words here. Yoga, that is what is to be defined. So first of all, what is yoga? Yoga word has come from yuja, everybody knows. Yuja means to bring together. Yok, Y-O-K, English word has come from the yuja dhatu. It is the same dhatu used in Latin language. So yuga means to yoke, or to bring together, or to hinge together. That is yoga. This much we have already studied in Bhagavad Gita and all that. So yoga is 2 things coming together. So when you say 2 things coming together, you presume there are 2 things. Advaita Vedanta says there is only one thing. That means the 2 things that we are talking is nothing else but an erroneous impression of 2 things. And those 2 things in the simplest possible word are Jiva and Shiva. Why Jiva is considering itself Jiva is because he has lost the Shiva. So the one who is born with Antakarana Upadhi, now I'm talking technical. The same word I'm talking in a little Shastriya Paribhasha. When a Jiva considers itself as a Upadhi, then he considers himself separate from the source, that is Atman or Brahman. At that point of time, he thinks himself as 2, that Brahman and me. Only when that Brahman and you are one and the same, that Brahma Asi is realized by him, Anubhuti, that is the time they come together and become one. That becoming one of the 2 is called yoga. That yoga. Then what is the definition of yoga? Because in that state, whatever happens is the definition of yoga. And what happens in that state? Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Now it is interchangeable. Whenever there is Chitta Vritti Nirodha, that state is called yoga, or yogi is in a state where there is no Chitta Vritti Nirodha is there. Either way we can take it. But that brings us to a very important aspect called what is Chitta. Now we many times call Chit. Chit is different. Chitta. The ta has to be stressed. Never called Chit. Chit is different. Original dhatu is chid. Chid becomes chit, and chitta, double T, chitta. This is what the word here is. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So vritti ta and chitta ta both are double. So that's why there is a double T on that. So we should, while pronouncing it, should be chitta. Now what is a chitta? Vivekananda Maharaj has given his own explanation in the Raja Yoga book, which you might have read, and we should also consider that. What he says is that the common experience of ours, whenever we experience anything outside, whenever we see anything, we hear anything, there are certain things that are very clear to us by now as a student of Bhagavad Gita, as a student of Upanishad, that every perception involves an indriya. Moment we say perception, there is something to be perceived, so there is an object. So we have an object. we have an instrument called the Indriya, and then this Indriya takes this information to the place where there is a mind, where all this, whatever is seen by the Indriyas, is collected and put on a table. In that table, everything is properly sorted out, and it is understood it as something. That process of determining what has come in on the table and it has been laid down is done by the organ called buddhi. So we know that an object, when seen by an Indriya, the information is brought in and put in front of an organ called mana, mind, and mind just compiles all the kachara information and brings it on the table. Of that information, some sense has to be made, that whatever a perception has been brought has to be analyzed, separated, and a nishchaya has to be made that what is it? The faculty that makes that determination that what has been brought in is this is called buddhi. So we know all this. So we have indriya, mana, buddhi, and suppose everything has been done, but this buddhi also, when she makes the determination that just now my eyes have seen a mobile phone, and that information, when it comes inside, it brings information like it is square, it is this, it is that. Then buddhi decides that whatever has been seen by this gentleman, the buddhi decides it is called mobile phone. It is not a block of wood, it is mobile phone. It decides, determines. So that is the function of buddhi. The question is, till this point, the knowledge has arisen that it is mobile phone. But the question is, to whom it has arisen? Who has understood it? Because buddhi is again an instrument. It just says that this is mobile. But to whom? Somebody has to acquire that knowledge. That one who acquires this knowledge, or he becomes abhimani of that knowledge, or the one who says that I cognize through my buddhi, mind, indriya, and the object, is that called ahankara. Ahankara. Ownership of the knowledge has to be taken by somebody. That ownership is called ahankara. So we have, what are the aspects Vivekananda Maharaj is saying? We have indriya, manas, that is mind, then manam, or then buddhi, and then ahankara. All these four together are called chitta. According to Vivekananda Maharaj, this is called mind stuff, chitta. So chitta is what? Chitta is a fluid thing. What do you mean by fluid thing? It is something which takes shape according to the function. So imagine a malleable, flexible lump of something. Moment it does a particular function, it appears as a role. So when it is acting, look, me, myself, I, it becomes ahankara. When it is acting as a deciding factor, definitive factor, nishchayatmaka, it is called as buddhi. So that means chitta is that malleable substance which is fourfold. Mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. These are the folds. These folds or the shapes are taken as per the function that it is performing. So it is same person who is acting in a drama. In the first part, he is the king. In the second part, he is a slave. Third part, he is a wife. Fourth part, he is a child. So he did four roles. The person who is doing the role is one, but he's doing four different roles in a drama. In the similar manner, functional capacitation, by functional propensity, the stuff takes a particular shape and functions that way. That is called chitta. So now we are more or less clear as far as Vivekananda's interpretation is concerned. These are various processes of chitta. So same chitta, which is called as antakarana also. Chitta is also called antakarana. Why antakarana? Anta means inside. Karana means indriya. Karana means indriya. Karana and karana. These are two words we normally call. Karana is cause, karana is instrument. If you go very, very much into Shastriya Paribhasha, then The asadharana karana is called karana. I'll slightly explain that karana what it is. We always feel that whenever I do a particular thing, it is I who do it. But the fact is, anything in this world is done by two things. One is sadharana karan and asadharana karan. Sadharana karan are 9 in numbers. Sadharana karan are 9 in numbers. They are Ishwar, Ishwar Ichha, Ishwar Jnana, Ishwar Prayatna, Papa Punya or Drushta Drushta or Dharma Dharma, then Pratibandha Bhava, Prag Bhava. So there are 9 different variants. We always say, no, this is happening to me because of Prarabdha. Then if it is happening because of Prarabdha, then how can I do it? Let us take example. I just took out my spectacles from in my hand and again put it back. Now I feel I did this act, but it was in my prarabdha, so I did it. So that means how many reasons are there? All the reasons which are other than my hand doing this are called sadharan karan. And this hand which he did it is called asadharan karan. Why? This is asadharan, this is directly responsible, those are indirectly responsible. So all this asadharana karan is also called karana, means indriya. So indriyas are asadharana karana. This is a slight deviation to understand the word antakarana. So that means this is nothing else but asadharana karana or indriya. That is why manaha shasthani indriyani prakrutisthani karshate in Bhagavad Gita. It says that is why they are called mana as indriya. See, we all know Panchendriya, Panchajnanendriya, but we never think mana as indriya. Mana is also an indriya. What type of indriya mana is? Karmendriya or Jnanendriya? Both. This is the only indriya which is both Karmendriya and Jnanendriya. So, but it is an indriya by itself. So, it is called Antakarana. So, Chitta is also called Antakarana, is nothing else but that malleable substance which is the interface between the consciousness and the entire manifested world. Or in other words, we are blind in this world if the Antakarana is absent. In other words, it is only through the Antakarana that we are able to experience the world. So that is why this particular Antakarana, which is loosely called as mana. Normally, in a loose language, we say mana. Mana means we are trying to refer to Antakarana, but mana is one modification of Chitta. There are others also, mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. 4 modifications are there. So that is why when you want to call the entire thing, call it chitta or call it antakarana. But commonly we refer that entire antakarana as mind or mana, manasa, man. Now, if this manam is the only apparatus through which we experience the world, it goes without saying that what is your world? Your world is all that what your mind experiences. Is it clear now? A deeper meaning that world is nothing the way you see or others see. Everyone sees the world the way he thinks he has seen. Why? Because everybody's mind is different. So the experience of this universe or the world, Jagat, is different for different people. That is the reason why when there is a cold wind, breeze coming, a person who has good amount of clothes on his body, he feels, oh, what a weather. The other person says, oh, it is so chilly, it is problematic. Same anubhava is giving 2 different interpretations because 2 different interpretations of universe are coming to their mind because their mind is perceiving the world in a different way. That is why the world is different for different person depending upon their mind. That means universe or Jagat will always be a different experience for everybody. But those who have transcended the mind, for them, there will be only one experience. That is the reason why most of the realized soul say the same thing, experience the same thing, talk about the same thing. Vivekananda, Gurudeva, both speak in the same voice. Why? Because there is no mind involved. involvement of mind either expands, restricts, or moderates your world experience. So, universe is a reaction of mind. This is Vivekananda's statement. Universe is a reaction of mind. Very deep meaning there is. This is a sentence for Chintan, Manana. Universe is a reaction of mind. He has also used one more beautiful word. Universe is experience in our own enamel. Enamel is given the example of an oyster, where that small animal keeps creating the layers of enamel, which becomes the oyster. Similarly, we keep creating the layers of experience on us, on our consciousness. So, our world is nothing else but the heap of experience that is put and loaded around the conscious principle. Now, once somebody is loaded with experience of world experience, can he ever have the proper vision of the universe? He cannot, because his experience of world will be delimited by the experience that he has. That means your world is delimited by your mind. You are in extreme fury, anger. How does the world look like? The way the mind is seeing the world, you don't see anything except the anger. When you're very happy, the world is now happy for you. The same place becomes hospitable, inhospitable, good, bad. All the variations come because mind is varying. Vagaries of mind is vagaries of universe. And now we saw what is chitta is. When chitta becomes a modification, it functions that way. When chitta is mind, it is collecting. When chitta is buddhi, it is deciding. So chitta is the substratum which is normally lying flat. And the commonest analogy is like a water in the lake. Shant. Moment it starts functioning, the ripple starts on the chitta. Depending upon the type of ripple, it is named differently. Mana buddhi chitta ahankar. I hope I am more or less clear with this. The question again is, this chitta alone, whether it is mana buddhi chitta ahankar, whichever modification, on its own, it is a jada. Jada means achetana, means it is there, but like a stone, it cannot do anything unless illuminated. That means chitta requires the prakasham to enlighten. That prakasham is nothing else but the Atma Prakasha. Call it Chidabhasa. There are different ways and theories how this prakasham comes get associated with the chitta. That we will see later. That's a separate subject. But chitta, unless illuminated by the consciousness, it cannot do anything. That is why chitta has been defined. So far we saw the definition of Vivekananda. We are also going to see other definition of puritanical yoga people. There are some people who do not deviate themselves from yoga shastra. They define the chitta in a little differently. We are going to see that. But now it is, at least now, for now, what is important is chitta, when it decides to modify into mana buddhi chitta ahankar, it has to be supplemented by the light coming from the consciousness. Only when the light gives itself to the chitta, then only the chitta starts functioning. And this particular consciousness or the light coming, Swami Vivekananda calls it blow of consciousness. So the blow of consciousness to the mind makes the mind to react. That reaction of mind is our knowledge or experience. Whenever chitta and its modifications, whichever modification it is in, is enlivened by the consciousness, then knowledge occurs. And this knowledge, since it is through mind, it is called experiential knowledge. Why? Because I feel I am experiencing it. It is called experiential knowledge. Why experiential knowledge? Because all this information which my chitta took from outside, it is a dry information. For example, somebody came and told you are a stupid of highest order. So naturally my ears heard it, my indriya heard it, brought it back to the mind. Mind just presented saying that there is a person who is like this, and he said you are stupid. Buddhi is the one who says, oh, stupid means he called you bad. Buddhi, Nishchayatmaka Buddhi. Okay. Now that is also fine. But the moment Buddhi decides he calls me bad, Ahankar says that, oh my, how dare he do that? This is Ahankar. So from collection till the Ahankar, all this. But for all this to happen, you require consciousness. Now when the consciousness is supplying fuel, fodder to this action, then only Chitta is called Pradipta. Otherwise, Chitta is Jada. It is as good as stone. So this is about the definition and explanation of Chitta given by Swami Vivekananda. Whenever this Chitta, which is normally supposed to be a silent and peaceful, calm lake, analogies of a lake, whenever there is a Pradiptata, or whenever it starts modifying, that modification is called Vritti. In very simple words, if you want to describe Vritti, Vritti means Chitta Taral Rupi Badal. A change of state of Chitta is called Vritti. The waves that come on the Chitta are called Vritti. Now Vritti could be anything. We saw these four Vrittis. Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankar is a Vritti itself. So when there is a calm and peaceful Chitta, nothing is happening to it. It's called Chitta. Moment it has waves or pulsations on it, it becomes Vritti. Which Vritti? Depending upon what function it is doing. Mana Vritti, Buddhi Vritti, Ahankara Vritti. So these are Vrittis. So these Vrittis are nothing else but the thoughts, as we call it. So that means we react. The mind, we means mind. We means now we are not talking of body. We are students of Yoga Shastra, so body is gone. We are focusing on mind. Again and again, I am emphasizing it is the science of mind. When the mind is reacting to something around you, if it is not reacting, Yoga Shastra is of no use to you. Why? Because you've gone beyond reaction. But if it is reacting, and we do react to everything that is around us, whenever it is reacting to anything that is around us, at that point of time, the silence of the Chitta or the Antakarana gets disturbed, and that disturbed Chitta becomes a Vritti, depending upon what function it is doing. So when we go to the mall, it is the mind that is working. This is there, 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 this I should have, this should also have. Mind. Then we decide, नहीं अभी ज़्यादा पैसा नहीं, खाली एक बैग लेना है, उतना ले लेता हूँ. बुद्धि. घर आते ही बोलती मैंने आज एक बैग ले लिया. अहंकार. So it keeps on taking the role. So Vritti and Chitta, this is how Vivekananda has described. Now the question is it that everybody's Vritti is same? Everybody's Chitta is same, but everybody's Vritti is same? We already saw that Antakarana, which normally we call mind, is made from what? From the gunas. Now, depending upon the guna that you have, your mind will work. Now, suppose my mind has more of tamoguna, then the vrittis that will come will be dominating with tamoguna. So that means I'll always say that so jate hain. How you maja karo, kya rakha hai? Tamoguna predominance, or there is a propensity to kill terrorist. Tamoguna. So that means Antakarana here is predominated by Tamoguna. So all the vrittis, the changes that will be coming will be of tamasic type. So how his mind will be working? Get the gun, kill them, don't bother. Pain, sadistic pleasure, all these are tamogunas. If it is Rajoguna prominence, then what will happen? It will propel you to act. Why? For control. Jata dhan, prosperity, more power, enjoyment, Rajoguna. So this person will always have vrittis of that type. What he will do, सुबह उठते ही morning moment he gets up, भगवान का नाम we will see later. What are the stocks saying? Oh my God, my stock went down, my stock went up. All I need is one bonus share and then this and Rajoguna, the activity. It is power. Tamoguna is brute. This is power. Power because activity and control, having more prosperity. Then, if such an antakaran is dominated by sattvikata, sattvaguna, then what will happen? The vritti will be of sattvaguna. What is the vritti of sattvaguna? I want to get up at Brahma Muhurta, 3:30 a.m. in the morning, otherwise he feels guilty. Sattvaguna. I have to read scriptures. I want to read more about Gurudeva. Gurudev, where he was, let me go to his samadhi and make my prayer to him. The thoughts that emanate, thoughts means vritti. Thought is nothing else but a forceful ejection. Vivekananda said, it's a forceful ejection as a reaction to the things coming from outside. So vritti is, and vritti has power because it makes you do so. That is the reason why karma happens. Karma is logical culmination of the thoughts that you have in mind. There is no thought, but I am doing only karma. Nahi hota hai. We always say that every karma has a prayojana. Prayojana rahita karma is what? Lunatic. Mad person does karma without any provision. He keeps on doing this because he has no provision. We have a prayojana. So that means thoughts propel you to act. So you have a chitta which undergoes a functional transformation called vritti. Vrittis are of 4 types called mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. Such a vritti, once it is fluttered, or once that disturbance, or once that ripples are there on the water, then the person gets involved in the world with the help of the thoughts and also becomes subject to the reaction of the universe to the thought. What are the reactions of the universe to the thought? The pain and the pleasure. I heard somebody calling me stupid through the indriyas. So buddhi told me and ahankar felt very bad. And then felt very bad is what? Is a result of that entire interaction. What it means? As long as chitta is in disturbed condition, disturbed conditions mean in vritti form, it will always bring some phalam, which could be sukham or dukkham, and that is what all this story of the world ends here. Then yoga does what? Yoga precisely stops this vrittis from coming and makes the chitta back as calm as ever. And by having this calmness, you are anyway exempted from any vagaries of vrittis. That is why no sukham, no dukkham. The lake of the mind is still, antakarana, chitta is still. The water becomes absolutely clean and transparent. And that is the time at the bottom of the water, we see ourselves. This is Vivekananda's explanation. So that is why chitta always tries to be neutral and in a natural, pure state. But indriyas distract us. The distraction comes from what the indriyas see, which is called pramadhyana, or it gets distracted by thought, memory, because nothing is around. Eyes are closed, ears are closed, mouth is closed, but still memory is there. So memory can also bring back into the world, because why? Memory or smriti has its own world. So there is one visible world, one world in the mind already made of memories. These two worlds bother us. So normally the chitta is in very neutral, pure, shanta sthiti. It is made to react when it reacts with the external world or the internal world of memories. And that is why this chitta, this antakarana, the last important point which Vivekananda Maharaj has given is that this chitta is not same in all animals. In human beings, it is developed to the fantastic extent. What is meant by fantastic extent? The sattva guna anshu is more in human beings. That is why we are able to perceive so many things. We have Trikala Jnana. Animals do not have Trikala Jnana, and the stone doesn't have any. Why? Because the differentiation of gunas, the dark tamoguna, if it is completely predominating, then with a very, 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 very little rajo or sattva guna, you become stone. Slightly rajoguna is becoming active, better than stone, you become plant. Further, it is becoming active, you become animal. That's why functionally, if we see, stone is inferior to plant, plant is inferior to animal. Amongst the animal, everybody is inferior to human beings because there is a vikasa. This is our Sankhyan concept of evolution, which is exactly opposite of Darwin. Darwinian evolution theory is completely different. Sankhya evolution theory is supposed to be the supreme, which says that higher the sattva gunas in your mind, lower the rajoguna, least the tamoguna, your evolution starts. And that is why such a sattvic mind will have less ripples on the chittam, less vritti formation. That is why less vikaras, sukham, dukkham. That is why be content with what you have. This is what is advised to us. Be content means what? Don't let rajogunas and tamogunas dominate your antakarana. This is the explanation of word chitta and vritti. If they are in the chittas, the changes that come, which are called vrittis, if they are stopped, nirodha, and mind well, the word is not virodha. Nirodha and virodha, these are two completely different things. Rodha, because ni and vi are upasargas. First of all, let us see what is rodha. Rodha has come from rudh. Rudh is obstacle. Rudha is obstacle, something that stops. When the obstacle has come as temporarily, we drive a car on the road, speed breaker comes. So this is virodha to the gati. So we go on it very slowly and we negotiate the virodha. After some time, another speed breaker comes. So that means virodha is a visheshena ruddhate. That means specifically on certain occasions for certain purpose, when there is an obstacle, it is called virodha. Right? And when such an obstacle is completely eliminated, nishesha, nisheshetvena ruddhate iti niruddha. Nishesha, no balance obstacle is left. In other words, vrittis that are emanating in chitta, if they are removed as an obstacle without keeping any trace of it, then it is called yoga. So the Vakhya of yoga is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta, the plane, antakarana, on which the waves of vrittis come, that have been completely subdued without any balance. Shesh nahi hona. There is no balance left. Complete annihilation. If that happens, and moment you use the word annihilation, virodha, you feel there is a force required. That is another thing. Nothing in yoga is with force. Like in Kathopanishad, it says, as if you can take the paddy from it, the husk, slowly, so that only the rice comes out. In the similar manner, without any virodha, through a smoother process of separation, of removing the obstacles of vritti in the chitta is called yoga, because such a chitta where there are no vrittis is the most ideal ground to perceive the Atma Tattvam. That is why it is called as the Chitta Avastha. Now, we also need to understand that other interpretation, if we see that Chitta word has also been seen in certain different forms. For example, chit word is insight. The meaning of word chitta, I am not saying chitta, one single ta, chit. Chit means to incite, to enlighten, to make aware is called chit. When you want to make it as a past participle adjective, another ta is added to that, chitta. I was injured by a broken glass. If you take this statement, I was injured by a broken glass. This broken word is called past participle adjective. It is a visheshan of a certain type. So when in Sanskrit, virukti, putting another same alphabet makes it past participle adjective. So chit becomes chitta by adding one more to. And when we do that, the meaning of that becomes is that which is enlightening. Now the question is, we all know that is it that the consciousness or the Atma Tattvam enlightens only Antakarana or all the body? Because if it is only Antakarana, then how will we perceive our hands and feet? In fact, we always say consciousness is everywhere. It is in Panchamahabhuta, it is in everything, in my body, everything. So ideally speaking, Vritti, if you want to define, there is a grantha called Vritti Prabhakara Rahasya that is dedicated only to Vritti. Very complicated Nyaya Ghattit Grantha, very difficult to read, difficult to understand also. But in that stricter and puritanical definition of Vritti is all that is enlightened by consciousness. All that is enlightened by consciousness is called Chit. All that is enlightened means even my hand, feet, everything is also Chit. No? Then why it is only Antakarana you call it Chit? The only difference is all that is enlightened by consciousness is Chit, but whatever else is enlightened is very dull in nature. The purest or the place where maximum enlightenment happens is an area called Antakarana. That is why usually when we say Chit, we say Antakarana. A technical, subtle difference. Either remember it or forget it, whatever. But Chit in stricter parlance would mean anything that is enlightened by consciousness. Because the highest that is enlightened is Antakarana, usually Antakarana is equated with Chitta. But one thing is there. They also object to call Chit as mind. They say Chitta is not mind. Because word for mind in Sanskrit is Manasa, not Chitta. That means Manasa and Chitta are different. Because Vivekananda was making understand the American people, they wouldn't have understood the subtle differences. He said mind stuff. He used the word mind stuff because he wanted them to understand. But being Indian, we do understand that Chitta is not mind. Why? Because mind is one variant of Chitta. We saw 4 variants. So that means Chitta is this according to puritanical transcription. Then we have Vritti. The word Vritti is derived from the word Vrut. Vrut is to behave or to revolve in circular motion. Vrut is to behave or evolve in circular motion. Vrut plus Ti. When Ti is added to that, it is a process. Vritti is behavioral mode of Chitta. That is functional change. We saw that. So functional modification is Vritti. In correct English, if you want to describe what is Vritti, functional modification of Chitta is called Vritti. Now, we have to stop this functional modification of Chitta. That process of stopping is called Nirodha. So, a very subtle, smooth procedure of stopping the functional modification of Chitta is Yoga. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. This is the definition of yoga. I am doing yoga means what? Or what a yogi is expected to do to call himself a yogi? The one. Nityabi Satatam Yuktanam. You always see bar in Bhagavad Gita, Lord is saying this because the process is supposed to be on a constant basis. 24/7, 365, not 24/7, forever. Chitta is not under modification, because every modification in Chitta, for example, I am doing a prayer, it is also a modification in Chitta. Now, once we know that it is the consciousness which helps in becoming, helping the modification of Chitta into Vritti, what about Ishvara? Ishvara also is supported by what? Consciousness. And then he does all the work in Maya, isn't it? So Ishvara has Vritti or no? He has Vritti. Because what is the definition? Anything that is enlivened by consciousness. So Ishvara is also, because I am a Jiva, he is a Ishvara, he may be all powerful, but the fact remains that he is also a created entity. See how subtlety we are going towards. All the Brahma, Shankara, Indra, whatever we call it, they are all supplemented by the consciousness. So they do have Vritti. Now their Vrittis do not go into Abhimana, etc. That is a different thing. That is a different aspect. But the fact remains that Ishvara Vritti is also there. So that is why Vritti can be good and bad. We saw Tamoguna Vritti, Rajoguna Vritti, Sattvaguna Vritti. I want to serve Gurudeva is also a Sattvaguna Vritti, but a Vritti. As long as Vritti is there, you are not Yogi. I want to see the God. It's a Vritti. When the Vritti will stop? When you become God. Why? Nothing is left to be done. And nothing is left to be done means no Vrittis are there. Yoga is the culmination of the stage where Vrittis are not there, modification of Chitta is not there. That means the empirical experience, empirical knowledge that we have, experiential state is gone. This is called extricating yourself from the mind, extricating yourself from the Vritti. अब खुदी के बाहर हूं मैं इश्क कफनी पहनकर, हर रंग में चोला रंगा, दीदार अपना हो गया. किसका दीदार हो गया? Whom did I see? I saw myself. Till that time, everything is tainted by Vritti. Kabir Maharaj calls it Anjana. And he says, Rama Niranjana Nyarare. That Rama is beyond this Vritti. Till the time you are doing worship of Dasharathi Rama, you are into Anjana state. Anjana Brahma, Anjana Shankar, Anjana Gopi Sango Govindure. Ram Niranjana Nyarare. Gopi bhi, Govind bhi, Krishna bhi, Rudra bhi, Brahma bhi. They may be enlightened status, but status. Yogi, tasya antana vidussura suragana. Even gods cannot understand it. We saw in Kathoparishad also. That is the state that yoga is expected to achieve. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So today, at least with the help of Vivekananda and the puritanical interpretation of Yoga Shastra, we realize one thing, that there is a state called yoga. And there is a person who reaches that stage called yogi. And that is the stage which is our aim or the goal. So that is why yoga chitta vritti nirodha. This is the definition of yoga. So far we have completed from Samadhi Pada, first and the second mantra. Vishaya Pravesh has happened, and now we shall be slowly moving forwards towards Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Sanjay ji, you said this Chitta is in the quiet situation, and the Vrittis are coming as mana, buddhi, and ahankara. So, what about the memory aspect?
The memory aspect, when we are talking about memory, is nothing but hold. This holding on to experience is the third modification called chit. Mana buddhi chitta ahankara. We say that time that chit is holding to the experience is the chit aspect of the vritti. Now here there may be some confusion because chit word came twice. Mana buddhi chitta ahankar and chitta. So substratum getting functionally modified into four different parts. Mana part, sankalpa vikalpa, we have different choices. Buddhi part, determination, holding on to one. Whatever has been chosen is buddhi, but chosen is held into is the chit part. And ahankar is the abhimani of all this, whatever has happened, that this happened to me. I am the one who is deciding, I am the one which decided, I am the one who is holding, is ahankar part. So memory is nothing but the experienced part, which is then stored as a memory of the experience that you had. Now the question is, suppose you have so many experiences, none of them are recalled. They are there as samskar. That is why it is called aprama. Aprama means knowledge which is obtained without the indriyas is called aprama. With the eyes, I get the knowledge of the pen. This is pramadjnana, pratyaksha jnana, pramadjnana. But I was so happy when I was 4 years old, because I am neither 4-year old, I cannot see that, none of my indriyas are involved, yet I have the jnanam. That is called apramadjnana. Again, it is divided into yathartha aprama and ayathartha prama. Those are finer details. But memory is nothing else but the jnanam which has been obtained by samskaras and stored. Till the time you don't recall it, it doesn't play any role for the vrittis. So when you are sitting into yoga and trying to meditate on one particular thought, at that point of time, what happens? These thoughts come from the experience. Now these thoughts can come from where? From the memory. So that means smriti itself is called smriti vishwa. So you have two universes. Perception, universe that you perceive, and the universe that is not there to be seen by indriyas but yet can be perceived. That is called smriti vishwa. Both are universes. One is built on presence of an object, another is built on experience of the object done earlier. So you have smriti jnana and you have vastu jnana. So external world and internal world both use the same chitta to appreciate, and one is done by recalling, another is done by actually perceiving through the indriyas. So that is the role of smriti. It is called yathartha aprama. Can I just add one small statement? One of the way of understanding mana buddhi chitta ahankar is, just take one analogy and I think that will explain us everything. When we get up in the early morning, we feel like having tea, isn't it? So I need to have a tea or coffee is a sankalpa. Who did the sankalpa? The chitta, which was so calm and quiet in the sleep, got up and had the first vritti on it called mind, and that mind was the one who did this sankalp, I want to have a cup of tea. So this is called modification of chitta into first modification mana. Immediately you feel, should I wake up my wife, or should I do it myself? Should I take sugar, without sugar, or Splenda, or I am diabetic? What happened? Options came. This is called vikalpa, options. So sankalpa, vikalpa, both are functions of mind, the first modification of chitta. Once this is done, then you decide ki it is better not to wake up anybody. I will myself make it. I will make it with sugar. I have diabetes, but doesn't matter. I will make it. What is happening? You are now determining, deciding. Now what has happened? Same chitta now has become buddhi. Okay, fine. So now you come, you take that particular box, then take out the sugar, you put everything, you start working on it, right? After that, the tea is ready. The coffee is ready. You take your cup of tea and coffee and take the first sip. At the point of first sip, that flutter which has started in mind with the sankalpa of having the tea is complete. Moment it is complete, what happens? The chitta becomes silent because all vrittis are done, right? Another vritti is yet to come. But at that point of time, all vrittis are done, chitta is in peace and calm position, and you suddenly feel very good about it. But you feel, oh, chai was so good, the tea was so good that I felt very good. You did not feel good because of tea. You felt good because the modification stopped. This is also nirodha, but momentary. Now, again, another will mind. Now I will take bath or I will take first brush. Again, the mind starts. So there are millions of vrittis emanating from the chitta every time. And the experience that you had after sipping the first cup of tea or coffee, that goodness, you want to keep it with you for some time. That propensity to hold on to the experience that we have is called chitta. So, mana buddhi chitta ahankar, mana buddhi chitta ahankar, mana buddhi chitta ahankar. Vrittis keep coming and they galore. So many of them, they keep coming. And in addition, we fuel them by giving multiple objects to the mind like TV and the serial and the food and whatnot. All this, when it is completely truncated and ensured that they will not come again, then it is called a chitta vritti nirodha, and then yoga is said to happen.